welcome to Build Up, the show about shows between the shows. We have John Cho, Aneesh Chaganty, and Sev Ohanian to talk about searching.
The movie follows a father whose daughter goes missing. He decided to use her laptop to trace her digital footprint in hopes of finding her.
You know, there's a lot out there on the internet about me. If you had to trace me on the internet, you'd find some crazy interesting stuff about me.
I believe that in myself as well. Why don't we do a special edition of Online Couch Confessions?
Yeah.
And call it Online Couch Confessions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Wow. You know, some days after a really, really long day, just the end of the longest day, I'm dead tired. I like to lay down in bed and open up Instagram and just scroll for 2 more hours for no reason at all and just ruin my next day. Because, hey, what's life for if it's not for scrolling? You got a scrolling problem?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Without question. How about you two?
She's crying. She misses the scroll.
She can't handle it. She can't.
You know, I love to scroll too. And sometimes I scroll dangerously, which is why I have a secret Instagram account that nobody knows about. And I use it to check up on my exes and watch my crush's story without getting caught. But I need to keep it an active account because otherwise Instagram will shut it down. So I make sure to post photos of reptiles and random ass memes. Hey, are you creeping on the internet? I think you're guilty. Are you creeping?
Sometimes.
Oh, sometimes. You're a freak.
I spent a really long time thinking that TFW meant too fucking weird. But TFW means that feeling when. Those aren't similar at all. Isn't that too fucking weird?
Definitely.
Have you ever heard of TFW? That feeling when you're trying to relate to your couchmates and no one is on board? Too fucking weird.
I know what TFW means. That feeling when. Like that feeling when you ask someone if they know how poop happens and they're like, no. Remember that feeling?
Yes.
I think I just experienced human connection on this couch. You know, I used to think that it was super rude when someone who was in a relationship would like photos, like sexy pics of other people. I'd get all judgy and be like, how greedy are you? You already have someone to love and love you back. And here you are, liking sexy pics. Until one day I was on my couch, just double tapping every cat pic that showed up on my feed aggressively. Ooh, a tiny mini kitty. Ooh, a tabby. I mean, I was going in. And then my cat jumped up on my couch and started pawing at my phone like, what's wrong with me? And I realized, wow, you know what? Doesn't mean I have any less love for my cat. She's the love of my life. But I still want to look at other cats online, right? Am I right? Are you trying to double tap on some cat pics?
I love cat pictures. Yes.
Do you ever, when you're in a relationship, still like sexy pics of other people?
Not really.
Wow, you're faithful. Oh my gosh. Wait, are you single?
No.
Oh, are they here in the studio somewhere? They're not? Can you double tap me? Oh, you just cheated.
Whenever I feel the urge to post something really thirsty on Instagram, I do it. But then I write a caption underneath it that calls out how thirsty it was to post that thing. So it's not really that bad, right? Right? Because then I'm like acknowledging it, right? So it's not really thirsty. It's kind of more of a commentary, right? It's kind of like a social commentary. That's cool, right?
That feeling when you're thirsty.
Oh, there we go. There we go. We're on board. What's the thirstiest thing you've ever posted on Instagram?
Oh.
Okay. I don't know if we want to go there. What about you? What's the thirstiest thing you've ever posted?
Oh, I've definitely posted like some underwear pics, like post-gym. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you put a caption that was like, not feeling ashamed of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just put it out there, yeah.
Good for you. I aspire to be that confident.
You know, I've put some thirst traps on the internet too. And to be honest, I actually have a loosely drafted statement in the event that I ever become relevant enough for my nudes to get leaked. Because, you know, internet privacy is just an illusion. All of our nudes are public, and they can be leaked at any point in time. Like, did you guys know that the dad from Wizards of Waverly Place had his nudes leaked just a week ago? Does anyone remember that dad on that TV show from Disney? No, right? But yet his nudes got leaked. Seriously, there's photos of this Disney dad fucking ripping his butt open on the internet, and those got leaked. It can happen to us. It can happen. It's scary. Get your statements ready, and don't let people kink shame you.
My dad still uses his AOL email, and we had a technical difficulty recently that made me call AOL and talk to them on the phone. And when the person on the phone realized that we had an original AOL email account, he said something along the lines of, okay, and it looks like you've been a member of AOL for 26 years.
Whoa.
And it was true. We got that account in 1996 and have kept it ever since. That's vintage
God.
AOL.
That's amazing. You know what? I think my family's been on AOL for just as long. Wow. This has been such a beautiful moment. I love sharing our internet couch confessions with you.
Thanks so much for sharing with us.
Thank
these
you for
couch
being real.
confessions. Wow, you guys were great.
Wow. This was great. You know, I love doing couch confessions. It really lets me just get all this stuff out.
Yeah, you know, you start, once you open up the floodgates, it's kind of like, why stop? Why don't we just keep sharing and getting into it and just opening up ourselves to the world about our weird internet life and whatever else?
Yeah, you know, you got to be weird on the internet and in real life, and you got to be open. And well, this is it for the build-up. Thanks for hanging out with us. And make sure to stick around because John Cho, Aneesh Chaganty, and Sev Ohanian are up next to talk about searching.
Thanks so much, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Last week, we saw the release of Unfriended Dark Web, a movie told entirely through what was happening on the computer screens of the characters. Now, the same production company has come back with another story all about our screens. This one about a father on the hunt for his missing daughter. John Cho plays the father, and I don't know how these directors, producers, writers, and stars do it, but I swear to God, they pull it off again. Let's take a look at Searching.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, sweetheart. Where are you?
Study group. I'm gonna go all night.
Oh, one more thing. I want to know
Dad.
about the final you took today.
I'm Margot. I'm 15. Student.
911, what's your emergency?
I'm calling to report a missing person.
Okay, who is this regarding?
My daughter.
I'm the detective assigned to your daughter's case. I need to know how everything unfolded.
Understood.
all night.
1. After a study session, Margot didn't return home.
Margot Kim, school has her marked as absent today.
2. She didn't attend school on Friday.
My daughter is in a lesson with you right now?
Margot canceled her classes 6 months ago.
And 3. She's been transferring funds for the last 6 months. We'll handle the ground investigation, but as a parent, you can help us with who your daughter talks to. Is that something you can do?
Yes. Do you mind answering some questions for me to help?
Did see her eat lunch alone.
On Thursday?
Every day.
You don't think she's involved with anything serious?
I know my daughter.
We're not really that close.
She has friends, right?
Kind of.
Why did you invite her to study group?
Trying to get into Berkeley next year.
When was the last time you saw her? She did not run away.
Local team has been missing since last
She
Thursday.
made a transaction of $2,500. I know my daughter. Where were you the night my daughter went missing? I know my daughter.
Look into her behavior also.
She gets a fake ID. I know my daughter. This is her keychain.
She was my best friend. You broke his jaw.
I know my daughter.
I'm trying to help you find my daughter.
I didn't know her. I didn't know my daughter.
Everybody put your hands together. From Searching, we have John Cho, producer Sev Ohanian, and director Aneesh Chaganty. Say it right? Got it? Yeah. Okay, thanks so much for being here, you guys. Congratulations on this movie, which, when you set out as a viewer to watch a movie that takes place entirely on computer screens, you're like, come on, this isn't gonna work. And then it fucking works, and you're blown away. You guys do an amazing job. I don't know what it's like as an actor to be doing this, because everyone says that acting is reacting all the time. That's like kind of the cliche that everyone throws out. How much are you with scene partners outside of the few scenes that we have of you where it's actually being recorded of you with other people, like in a room? Are you actually working with the other actors on the phone calls, on the Skype records and everything?
On the Skype records, we were in different rooms and we worked with earwigs, but we didn't actually use FaceTime. We used GoPros, right? And so they were, so they had a little feed, and sometimes that became more distracting than it was helpful. But so no, I wasn't in the room with the people, so that was a little uncomfortable for me.
Do you have video of them at all, or is it just the GoPro shooting you and you just?
There was video of them.
There was
a very small video.
That's what was
this
distracting.
Small. Yeah, so it was hard to. And then you couldn't actually. If I were looking at you, I could feel free to look at all of your face or wherever I wanted, but we had to be very specific because the camera was so close, so that a centimeter off looked crazy, right? So, so the eye lines were, I think, the most technically weird, difficult thing about the movie.
Which was probably completely unexpected going into it.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. This is, you know, this is sort of, it felt like making a movie for the first time because I was, like everything I'd learned just didn't matter for this movie.
Is that a good feeling? Is that something that something that you had hoped for going into it?
No, no. You want to feel in control. But
an actor like loves control because you're so out of it most of the time on a set.
You fight for control, real estate, as much as you can as an actor. And I really, on this one more than maybe any other film I've ever done, I had to rely on the director. Aneesh, who was great, who I trusted, but since so much of that stuff did not exist at the time of photography, you know, the film was in large part made after I went home. You know, all those screens, all those characters. Those are characters. Those are sets. Those are costumes that were made after photography ended.
The heart of these movies is the actors, but the bulk of these movies, in terms of the physicality of them, is in post-production, right? So how do you get your actors used to? Actually, let me backtrack. Excuse me. You start with a script, right? Does your script? I'm curious. I haven't seen one of these. Does it have all of the kind of references to how each screen is going to be laid out as the story is told?
we hadn't actually seen any other scripts either like that. Aneesh and I, were writing partners, and when we first were given the opportunity to write this script and make this movie, we actually weren't crazy about it. There have been other films that have been made on screens, and we had seen some of them, and we knew that some of them worked, but for us, we weren't excited about the prospect of trying to do something that had kind of been done before. So when we actually took on the project, we kind of knew we were kind of starting from a clean slate. So when we were writing the script, we kind of had to spend a couple days just trying to come up with some rules for ourselves. Do we want to have a script that is going to say interior, Google Chrome, Facebook, Margot's photos,
--night.
--night. And we had to kind of come up with all those rules for ourselves.
What was the rule? I mean, what did the script end up having?
So we ended up creating what we called a scriptment as the final document that John read and all the actors read and everyone, which is sort of like a mix of a treatment and a script. Basically because there's so many rules that a traditional screenplay you have to follow that if you wrote it into a screenplay for this movie, the script would end up being 300 pages because you couldn't just have that many scene headers. It's all very technical lingo here, but what we ended up realizing was there's no way, no script rule has ever told you how to write a backspace text or how to write a cursor or how to write multiple windows open. So we're let's just make it up on our own. So we literally opened up a Google Doc and started on that instead.
So in our script, the text messages look like how they would look like on a movie. It's top left, top, bottom left, bottom right. And every time, for example, you asked about the rules,
a graphically designed script.
Oh yeah, totally.
Exactly.
And every time in our movie, more often than not, characters will write a text and then they'll change their mind and delete it. In the script, we would write the text and then put a strike through it, which represented hopefully backspacing. I mean, this is all very technical, but it's a good example of we were trying to make something that we hadn't had any experience doing before.
And the script was, by the way, was just a fraction of the movie that ends up coming out.
That's what I was just going to ask. I mean, the cliche is that you make the movie 3 times, script, shooting, edit. Now, I imagine when you get into edit, because there's so much post in this and you're screwing with programs and how your characters are perceiving things, that you can find yourself completely rearranging your story by accident almost, and then having to go back and do something else. How did that work? Did you have to do any reshoots or anything?
We had no reshoots. I think we had a few hours of pickups at one point, but for the most part, our storyline was the same from the version of the script that we started with to the final product. The difference, though, is basically the script is just talking about what happens in the movie. What is the cursor immediately dealing with? At any point in the movie, if you pause this, there are thousands of lines of text, copy, emails, finder windows, text messages, pop-ups that are happening. Every single line of text on this movie was written by us for the film to be part of this film. So ultimately, when you kind of do the math, the screenplay is the actual amount of copy is about 20 to 25 times the amount of screenplay itself. And we're tracking other storylines, we're tracking other things that are happening simultaneous to the film.
We try to have fun with it. The movie's about a father looking for his missing daughter, and early in the movie you might see a text message with him and his daughter, but to the left of that you could see another text message with a woman maybe he went on a date with a couple days ago. She's asking hey, had a great night, can we have another dinner soon? And then a few scenes later, it's the same woman in the corner. Hey, want to make sure you got my message. I want to grab another drink with you. And then
almost your version of set design.
Oh,
your
100%.
version of production design, yeah.
And our fun is in the middle of the huge investigation. She's oh, your daughter is missing. What about next week? So we try to have fun by including funny subplots to make it interesting for people who, as they're watching, to have fun with the rest of the movie.
In terms of the way the movie was done, though, it was really resembled. From my vantage point, more animation than anything else, so that they had this a cruder version of the whole film sort of cut together that we then shot our live segments for, and it was inserted into the movie, and then everything was sort of taken to its final stage later on. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically, literally the first people we hired on this movie were the editors. Before we hired anyone from set, we were let's hire the editors because they're the ones who are going to kind of have to commandeer this ship early on. And Sev had this idea of why not try to make the movie before we make the movie? Because ultimately, there are 2 cameras in the film. There's all the footage that is in a Skype camera or in the world of the internet, and then there's the way that the filmmakers, we are framing that story, the way the camera is moving and everything like that. So we knew those 2 cameras always had to be working with each other properly. So to properly figure that out, we literally just started 7 weeks before, brought the editors into a room, and they started screen capturing the internet and putting together a very rough version of the movie what ended up coming out 7 weeks later was an hour and 40-minute cut starring me playing every role, the dad, the daughter, the brother, the mother, all of her friends, talking to myself. And it was this hour and 40-minute cut that
like a great photoshopped photo of you smiling with yourself. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah, some of my best performances, also featuring some of my worst performances. But you know what ended up coming out? We took to set and we would show John because ultimately his character's the one operating that computer. So his eye line, he needs to know exactly where every button is, where every cursor is, where every window he's dragging is. So there'd be times where I would show that to him and be like, "Hey, John, great take. Next time, just move the cursor a little to the left." Per this example.
So for you as an actor, this sounds like the most restrictive performance you've ever had to give.
I mean, it was. I don't know. Sometimes it was frustrating because, but I also looked at it as a challenge. I'm trying to make something whole, but using only one kind of angle the whole time. But even in that, I found it was fun to find different ways of expression. Like depth became a big signifier for us. You know, leaning in and out. It was much more dramatic than it was in a traditional film with this particular camera setup. So those things became important. Where you were in the frame. You know, it's just I always think of like the frame as the parameters of a stage, and you know, this just happened to be a smaller stage that you had to figure out. So yeah, it was a puzzle.
Now, I have to say, watching this film, it's one of the few films I feel like I've seen in a long time that is about an Asian American family without sort of being about that, if that makes any sense. They're just an Asian American family living their lives, and it's about a father searching for his daughter. You know, there's some conversations early on about someone's making a kimchi recipe, but I thought that was so fascinating. I really have nothing to add to it other than like at one point I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is great. This is about an Asian American family, and we rarely get this.
Yeah, I mean, it was, maybe you can tell the story of how that happened, or that it was always Asian American, I think. It was always David Kim, and that's certainly gratifying to read, to get a script that has the character David Kim. I've often had the experience of being offered a role that wasn't written Asian, and I was sort of taking it over, but it's more gratifying when you know that the character is written as such.
Yeah, I mean, for us, and I'm speaking on behalf of Sev as well, it's like growing up, you know, I feel like the films that I watched and loved so much, and we watched and loved so much, were these action movies and thriller movies and mysteries. These movies that had nothing to do with race or culture or anything, but just always happened to feature the same kind of people in it. And when we got a chance to make a movie, we figured, like, why not do the exact same thing for a totally different group of people?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I think is one of the coolest parts about the film, is that it has nothing to do with being Korean American or Asian American. It's just about an American family and a dad looking for his kid. Just so happens to feature John Cho and a Korean family at the heart of it.
Yeah, and every time we'd be you know, in the process getting asked, well, why is it Korean American? Why are they Asian? Our only response is always just, why not? You know.
Which is exactly what I felt when I had 20 minutes into the movie. That's exactly what it felt like. It was like, why not have an Asian American family within this parameter, within this situation? You know, one of the things, there's been a couple movies that take place on computer screens right now. Unfriended, the series, the first and the second one, and now Searching. I think one of the ways that you differ than those movies, a lot of ways, but one way is that yours is all about many different kinds of screens, right? It is sort of taking place on one or two, but there are many different kinds of screens in which we take in information, and I think your movie tries to capture all of those, right?
When we first came into the project, we literally had a rule book of, like, this is how these movies are supposed to get made. There were 3 rules in this rule book the producer gave us. The first one was that this whole film, you could never cut. It always had to be one big wide shot. The second rule was that it had to be real time. So if your movie was 90 minutes long, in the world of the story, it had to take place over 90 minutes as well. And the third rule was that it had to stick with one computer screen, one objective lens. And we looked at
all those.
We break all those rules, I think, within 15 seconds of the movie starting.
Like in our perspective, like these screen movies that have come before, like almost represent the earliest films that were ever made. Like, you know, like there would be one camera sitting there, people performing in front of it, and that was kind of it. in our minds, it was like there's been 100 years of cinematic techniques that have been developed. Why not use all of them? And let's have our movie feel like our goal was to take these relatively mundane objects that we all use every day, our screens, our laptops, our phones, and make them as cinematic as possible. And hopefully that shows even in the trailer that we use zooms and edits and montages and all these things that you see everywhere else. And hopefully it makes the movie a better experience.
I think one thing that you see as well is that the sort of fundamental tenets of storytelling haven't changed as much as the screens have or the medium has. It's still a man hunting for his daughter, and the things that come up in the first act are what help solve the puzzle in the last act. You know, you're still operating in that mold.
We knew that if this story were to succeed, it could never be a gimmick of a movie that happened to have a story. It had to be a story that was told with a different way of telling it. You know, like the story had to be first and foremost. So from the beginning, we were like, no matter what, we need to treat this movie like a conventional classic thriller, a conventional story, structured story, and a classic thriller. And if we put the story first and we're just being informed, informing the story through the way we were telling it, ultimately the audience would be grounded in a way that I think they haven't been before, I think, hopefully.
John, how many days were you actually on set for this?
Not very many. 13?
Yeah.
13. Oh, wow, 13?
Yeah, it was fast. And, you know, really there was one lens. There was one shot the whole, for most of the film. So that actually, even though the schedule was hurried, we did a lot of pages per day, but I felt like we had enough time because we didn't have to do a wide, a medium, and a close-up and over the shoulders. It was just
an extreme close-up.
An extreme, freaky close-up.
What was it like when you saw the film for the first time? I mean, versus seeing any other movie that you've been. I know actors, for the most part, anybody really that's not crazy vain has trouble watching themselves on screen. But how is it different watching yourself in something like this than in a regular movie?
I was thrilled by myself. It was just thrilling to watch me. No,
God, he's amazing. Look at that.
That dude's awesome. You know, my big impression with the movie, aside from it working and me following the story as any viewer might, is how surprised I was at how much I understood the vocabulary of the film, of the vocabulary of the screens. And I consider myself a little, you know, further behind than most people in terms of my literacy, my computer literacy, but we are at a time in our history when we're all familiar with the language of these devices. And as you can tell from like the opening montage even, not only are we familiar with the present day through our devices, but we have nostalgia for devices. You know, that's how far we are into it. And everything meant something to me. The backspaces meant something to me. Those Facebook profiles indicated something to me, and that was the most impressive part of the movie.
Yeah. Let's get some questions from our audience. Who's a question?
Okay, so I think you did end up touching on this a little bit, but my question was kind of talking about how I've heard some directors say that cell phones aren't very cinematic and that social media isn't very cinematic. How would you respond to that?
I think it's because it hasn't been done properly yet, was our big theory going into it. Whether or not we succeeded, you let us know, but our objective was to take these, again, what Sev was saying, our objective was to take these very, very cold and mundane objects, things that you don't associate with being cinematic, and then turn them into very big screen cinematic things. And for us, it was not a matter, I feel like technology so far in media, whether it's TV or movies, has always been done so poorly. Like when people cut to a cell phone, like they'll show a text message that's like so big or so weird, and you're like, I've never seen a phone like that. Or a website would always look made up and something like that. And for us, it's like, let's take the real world and let's just frame it in a way that you feel like you're watching a normal movie. So the big experiment for us is, can we turn this into something cinematic? I think we did, but you obviously let us know. August 24th, baby.
Next question.
Hi, this question is for John. I've been a big fan of yours since Hero and Kumar. So my question is, being an Asian American actor, what are some advices that you would give to young aspiring actors who are Asian American who want to break out into writing, directing, or acting?
I would say be less Asian. That joke did not land.
Yeah, that one was a total dud. That was a total dud.
I heard it. I was like, that's ballsy.
Wow.
John.
Wow, yeah. I don't know how to respond.
I don't
to
know.
that.
I think it's the same for any actor or artist, be they Asian or not. Be honest. It's a really good place to start, and people respect that. Respect authenticity of experience, and then if you're selecting parts, if you can. Just have a personal connection. If you can think of a personal connection to a role, I think it also, even if it's not like I'm like that character, but I like this movie because of, I think you're in good stead, and people will feel that personal connection. So it's just about, most important thing is being the best version of yourself.
One more.
I think it was a very unique screenplay story, a very unique production story. It's really cool. Do you guys think you laid the template down for this kind of thing, or do you think there's more rules that can be broken to fit, this kind of narrative between screens and human connection?
Sure. Speaking from both Sev and myself, we feel like we are done, and we have pushed the envelope as far as we can.
You don't have like 4 more scripts that you want to do?
Yeah, searching 1, searching 2, searching 3, and searching 4. Research. No, to us, we always equated this, even though we live our lives on screens, and I think that's one of the big basis of why we're able to tell this story the way we're able to tell it. At the end of the day, this is a very concept-driven story, And for us, we always were like, listen, if I saw Memento once, like how many more backwards rom-coms, backwards thrillers, backwards romances would I be into? Maybe there is a way to kind of do it and kind of elevate the concept more further, but I think for us, we're done.
Yeah, and to me, the film works. There's the concept of it, the conceit of it taking place on screens, but it works ultimately because it is a very classical structure. It's a very classic themes and classic characters, and in a way, it's sort of the theatrical experience is part of it too. Is the thrill of seeing the drama that we live on our devices being displayed in a classical way, and so I don't know how much further to take the conceit. It's just how many times you can do it, how much further you can go with it. But I know we can do the classic film over and over again.
Guys, congratulations on Searching. I thought it was great. I can't wait to see it on the big screen. August 24th, right? Everybody go check it out. Yeah. And give them a big round of applause. Let's hear it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.